5pmnation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being. It's Brian, fired up to be hanging out with you for a full hour this morning live. My apologies yesterday that the show had to be pre-recorded by a couple hours, but it was my son's birthday. We had a blast. Thank you for everyone that sent in the wishes, the good wishes, and saying to have a good time. We most certainly did. You know, when when you're 3 years old, really, you're going to have a good time doing almost anything. Which is why I dig hanging out with little kids, because they still have, and it's one of the things I want to talk about today, they still have their personal ethos. Now, they may not have learned a lot at that age, but they have a personal ethos. They know what it is that's going to put a smile on their face, and there's no talking them out of it. So we're going to focus on that in a little bit, but I wanted to take the time to thank you for joining with me, allowing me to be your tag team partner, your shotgun, your co-team member in doing one thing, and that is reviving your inner superhuman, unlocking your metahuman. Because if you're here, your all-natural being sits at your core. If you're here, and I think it's about high time that we go ahead, go in, and get your best sense of self back out. And that's why it's such an honor. That's why I'm thrilled, truly thrilled, to be with you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And now we're doing rebroadcasts at 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern, as well as the following morning, 7 a.m. You can get the previous day's show bright and early in the morning. About the time that's playing, know that I'm up and I'm working on our 11 a.m. show. I also need to let you know, allnaturalbeing.com, same as brianbrawdy.com, revivingsuperhumans.com, unlockingmetahumans.com. You know where we're going with this. Head on over, leave me an email. I'll send you one back. We can connect that way. Of course, over at Twitter, at Brian Brawdy, and also on Facebook. Our numbers continue just to blow up over on Facebook. Brian Brawdy Official is how to get a hold of me over there. And I promise that I include the things that people email me and text me and send me. I try to work those into the show because I think it's important for us to be able to be interactive, which is why you can also text me, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Give me a text during the show if I said something that you dig. If I said something you don't like, send me a text and let me know, and we'll incorporate it right into what we're doing here. So if you've been listening to All Natural Being for a while, then you know that I'm a huge fan. Excuse me. Quick sip there. Crunch a little ice. I'm a huge fan of acting like, well, it says in the open, a philosophical loofah, a pumice stone, a power washer, an eraser at the end of the number 2 pencil. Because I think everything you've ever needed, you've always had. I think you were born with it. I think you were born a badass. I think you have an inner superhuman, a metahuman, just waiting. As I say over on the website, look, your soul is tired of being left on the sidelines. It's getting piles, sitting on the bench all this time. It wants out. Yes, I think your soul could get piles. It just wants out. It wants to see the light of day. And believe me, you want it to see the light of day. How stressful must it be to constantly keep your heart in check, constantly keep your soul on the sidelines? And I'm preparing a report for tomorrow. I had a chance to talk to a medical doctor about post-traumatic stress syndrome. Now, let me just say, this is in no way, shape, or form an attempt to minimize returning soldiers or policemen or firemen or policewomen or firewomen that are subject to PTSD. I'm simply saying that I'm building the case, working with medical doctors to do so. I'm building the case that says after a certain amount of time, if you leave your soul on the sideline, if you turn your back on who you truly are, if you ignore your personal ethos, if you turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to that inner whisper, that there reaches a stage where you begin to suffer from PTSD. Because it's absolutely traumatic to reach a certain stage in your life realizing that you've been watered down all these years. And that's stressful. So I'm working to build the case with these doctors that if you're chronically unhappy, chronically unfulfilled, you got a little bit of your own PTSD going on. So what are we going to do together as a tag team? We're going to go in, we're going to get your great back out, because it is an impossibility for stress and your superhuman to coincide at the same time. It's impossible. Can't happen. Not going to happen. Just can't. Which leads us to the anaerobic aphorism for today. We'll jump into it real quick. Your core, your heart, the marrow of your mind, the grit of your spine. I'm trying to make that rhyme, so I got to switch that up next time. But the very grit, right? You squeeze your fingers together and then making a fist, and it makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Apparently, also makes you slobber a little bit when you're not careful, right? But just, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, yes. That's your core. And your core knows that stress is a costume. It's a facade. It's a little blanket you put over yourself. What it can't figure out is why you keep choosing to wear it. Because your core, it doesn't understand this stress. It's like, stress? What? Oh, you mean dress for success? No, we're not focusing on that at all. We got too many people dressing for stress. Stress is a garment. It's a garment that you and I put on, but it can't touch our core. It doesn't touch the home of our inner superhuman, our inner metahuman. Doesn't touch it. So when we go through a life of leading all this stressful days, I saw an article where someone called life a minefield. How the hell is life a minefield? Now, it's not always easy. Doesn't always give us what we want in the moment, but I think you would agree from time to time what we want isn't always necessarily the best for us. That when something happens and you look back in retrospect, you go, yeah, you know what, that kind of sucked in the moment, but boy, did that end up working out great in the long run. How is life a minefield? You're absolutely right. Unless you wear the garment of stress, then it's absolutely a minefield, because everything gets through. Everything becomes a pin. And you and I are one big cushion waiting to be stuck, waiting to be pricked by one of these pins. But we've come up with a stigma. You look, there's 75% of the people are suffering from mental health problems. Whatever the figures are. How? How is that possible? Well, we've forgotten who we are. We have amnesia. We have blind spots. And standing behind our blind spots, well, you know what? That's what causes stress. And this morning I was on my way back from a workout. And the only question that popped to mind, and I wanted to ask you that, get your answer to it, but when did feebleness become fashionable? When did we get this stigma of being defective? Oh, we got mental health problems. When did that happen? When do we start wrapping ourselves in stress? For what? Life isn't a minefield unless you're wrapped in stress. When you tap into your all-natural being, it's a labyrinth, sure. You need courage for around a blind corner, down a dark alley. It's not a minefield. So I ask, what's happening to us? When did feebleness become so fashionable? because your core knows that stress is a costume. What it can't figure out is why you and I keep choosing to wear it, why we pull it out every day and put it on. Our core is like, what is this craziness? But at your core, in your heart, you're all natural being. It's like a storm blowing up in the ocean. It doesn't touch the very bottom of the ocean, it touches the surface. We live in the shallow ends. But when you live in the deep end, when you live within the marrow of your mind, when you dovetail your heart and your head, none of it touches it. Pick a stress. Pick a stress, any stress, like I'm a card dealer. Pick a card, any card. Pick a card, any card. Fill in any stress. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Give me an idea. What are some of the stresses that you're up against right now? Some of the things that you and I look at and go, oh, man. I was conversing with a friend of mine. You hear all the time about the gardens of the gods. I've always liked the term the garden of the mortals, because that's what you and I are. We're mortals. In the garden of the mortals, it's a tough run if you wrap yourself in stress. Tough run. But if you channel your all-natural being, your inner superhuman, your inner metahuman, the garden of the mortals is where all the treasure is. That's the labyrinth. The ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pivots, the swerves, the lunges, the lapses, all of it. No dead ends, just cul-de-sacs. When you have the courage for around the corner, no matter what the future throws at you, you're like, I'm in. That's your core talking. That's who you are. And I just, before we move on this morning, I want to go back to this. Everyone talks about, the fear of death drives everyone. Well, you only fear tapping out if you never tapped in. Which is why I say all the time, you were born with a destiny. You made a deal to be put here. Fulfill that deal or go home broken. But people that fear tapping out, they fear death. It's only because they never truly tapped in. Never truly channeled their all-natural being. Never evoked their ethos. Their personal ethos. You have one. It's your unique genius. The combination of everything. The beauty, the mystery, the magic that is you. You're one big skin bag of buried treasure, of natural resources. So the only people that fear death are the ones that never evoked their personal ethos. That on their deathbeds look back over their life when they say, was I me? You gotta go, nah, I wasn't me. I caved. I gave in. I brokered a deal. I didn't do it. I didn't pull it off. Those are the people that fear tapping out because they never tapped in. So all I'm suggesting is why do that to yourself? In the garden of the mortals, that's our testing ground. That's where you and I are dropped to fulfill our destiny. And what waits for us in the garden of the mortals? Fate. Fate waits for us. If you look at Buddha sitting under the tree, all the distractions. If you look at Jesus in the wilderness, when Satan shows up, more fate, more distractions, pulling them outside of themselves. Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita. Fate, the distraction, the fear, the complacency. In the garden of the mortals, you and I can run the table when we tap into our all-natural being. And if you haven't run the table to date, a table that you define, if you haven't run the table to date, you haven't tapped into your all-natural being. haven't channeled your inner superhuman, your inner metahuman. So when it comes to fearing death, it doesn't touch you and I. What was the poem? Death, where is thy victory? Where is thy sting? Where is thy victory? Death, be not proud. Well, for people that have tapped in, tapping out, who cares? I'm burnt. I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to donate my energy back, whatever that means. I'm ready to reconnect with the divine, however you define it, heaven or the Higgs field. I don't care. You should. Your personal ethos, that's a part of it. So when I write these shows, which I have to be honest, between you and me, writing is a bit... I have a one page, I put up some bullet points, and then I just rant, right? That's what my call-in number should be, 1-800-JUST-RANT. But when I sit down to write these shows, it's with the concept of removing any of the speed bumps, any of the hurdles, not from life, but from you tapping into your all-natural being. From you and I reviving our inner superhuman. That's why the pumice stone, the loofah, the spray wash, the number 2 pencil. We talk about a pin. I'd like to take a little pin to your bubble wrap. Boop, 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 boop. And so when you're done with the bubble wrap, where people fight and go, oh, don't pop my bubble wrap, till they finally get out of the bubble wrap and they go, what the hell was I worried about? When you evoke your personal ethos, your unique genius, when you bring your own bold, there's nothing that the labyrinth can throw at you. Nothing that the garden of the mortals can throw at you that you can't handle. Now you wrap yourself in armor of stress, you throw on that costume. Different gig, different story. But when it comes to life, when it comes to the garden of the mortals, it's up to you and I to run the table in the way that we see fit. But yet a lot of us continue to give away our personal power. And I don't mean personal power, I'm not going to go all Tony Robbins. I am not your guru. Not going to go all Tony Robbins on you. But your personal power. So what are we going to do with the all-natural being? What can you do every morning when you wake up? You evoke your personal ethos, your unique genius, so that no matter what unfolds in the moment you're in right now, in all of time, you're confident, you're courageous, you absolutely know you can handle it. We don't cower in the corner. We're too busy squaring our shoulders with whatever fate's going to throw at us. Well, that's you. That's why I say all the time, I'm on your side even when you're not. What's my something to believe in? My something to believe in is you. Now, I'm not trying to be all Pollyanna. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a spiritual coach. I'm not all these other things. I'm not even here for you. I'm here for your soul. I'm here for you to get a new lease on life. But basically, I'm here for your soul because your soul is tired of being kept in check. And if you're unhappy, if you're unfulfilled, if you're disappointed, if you think life is a minefield, your soul's kicking back, sucking down some Gatorade next to the bucket and going, well, of course it seems like a minefield. He hasn't let me in. It'd be like someone in a relay passing up the chance to hand off the baton, and they keep running and running and running. Don't worry. So let's say it's a 100-yard relay. Imagine the first runner grabbing the baton, and then when it comes time to pass it off to the next, and then the next, and the next, he or she just goes, nah, I got this. I don't need I don't need my teammate. So your soul just sits there and goes, what do you want me to do? I got to be called in the action. You imagine being a football player. You got a coach. All of a sudden you decide, I'm tired of sitting on the bench. I think I'll just run out onto the field. I'll hop in. No. You wait for your coach to holler your name. You wait for the coach to holler your name. Then you go in. Or you probably stop by, see the coach. The coach says, hey, do this. And you say, oh, okay, great. Then you go in and do it. You just don't get up off the bench and run in. So your soul's just waiting for you to decide you've had enough of the bad crap crazy and you want in. Just the very thought, the garden of the mortals, that's where you and I are. That's what we can be grateful for. Garden of the gods. Who gives a crap? I'm thankful that you and I were dropped in the garden of the mortals. Let's take a quick break.
IPMNation.com.
IPMNation.com. All right, it's got some great studies coming from around the web today, some things that I wanted to share with you. Get your opinion on 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Soul. We're talking. We're talking Garden of the Mortals, the labyrinth that you and I are in. We're talking about stress. Why put it on like a pair of like a pair of shorts with holes all through them? A shirt that's all worn out. You're like, no, I don't have to do that. You get up in the morning, you put on whatever you want. You decide to wear the cloak of stress, up to you. You decide to put on your superhuman cape, up to you. So the first study that I want to talk about this morning came from King's College, London. There's got to be a joke there where you're like, hey, wait a minute, I thought they had a queen. The study from King's College in London, quote, for many decades, scientists have believed that people have an irrational optimism bias. Wah, wah, wah. That I ad-libbed it, by the way. That's not part of the quote. Let me get back to the quote. A tendency to underestimate their chances of negative experiences while overestimating their chances of positive events. A new study casts doubt over claims that people are inherently over-optimistic or optimistically biased about the future. Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about it again for a second. Instead of being optimistic or instead of being pessimistic, what if we agree? What's a term? If you get a term, text me one, 331-684-7685. Oh, believe me. We'll go ahead and incorporate that into the show. So if it's not optimism, it's not pessimism. You don't think everything's going to turn out great. You don't think everything's going to turn out crappy. You're just confident in your ability to focus right in this moment. You're confident in your ability to handle no matter what happens. What kind of istic? Oh, we could call it realistic. Yeah, we got to have something better than that. Let's keep working on that. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. What are some of those things where we could go, no, we're not going to look plus or minus, up or down, left or right. We're just in. Not I am, but it is. So the article says, for many decades, scientists have believed that people have an irrational optimism bias. Optimism bias is thought to have contributed to past financial crises and the failure of individuals to look at themselves or their environment. UK government, it says, even considers optimism bias when planning large infrastructure projects and deciding which projects should be funded and which shouldn't. So what fascinated me about this study, it says, quote, previous studies which have used flawed methodologies, get out of here. These were studies by doctors at major universities. Flawed methodologies say it isn't so. says that they have claimed that people are optimistic across all situations and that bias is normal, are now in serious doubt. Oh, no. Well, they're like, well, I didn't really mean that. I meant, I meant this. But now that it's that, I'm going to try to get you to forget this, and we're just going to focus on that. All right, so now what do the doctors tell us? The assumption that people are optimistically biased is being used to guide all these huge programs. But what they're saying now is that, wait a minute. Maybe we don't. Maybe we aren't overly optimistic. And what caught my attention, obviously, about that story is, well, what if we're just realistic? What if we're faced with the reality of the moment and we know no matter what, we can handle it? No optimism, no pessimism. Now, I guess you could argue that if you believe that much in yourself, why? I guess you could say, oh, maybe that's optimism, but why would that have to be? Why would that have to be? Why can't you just believe in yourself that no matter what happens, you're in. You're going to pull it off. So they can have all the studies they want. They can talk about cognitive psychology, the publication. Oh, there's major flaws in the research supporting the existence of this optimism bias. Oh, major flaws, are there? Oh, really? Shocker. What if you and I, the kindred, right? Because we say all the time, this show isn't for everybody. If you're a cognitive couch potato, you'll be screaming at me now, throwing your phone across the room if you're listening on a smartphone. What if you and I just go, we're not going to be pessimistic, we're not going to be optimistic, we're going to be realistic. We know we can handle, no matter what, the garden of the mortals throws at us, the labyrinth of life. That's what we're going to do. We're not going to worry about A or B. We're just going to do what we do. We'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
All right, so that's the question we ask at the bottom of every hour. How much longer are we going to let them, ooh, careful, because we could be in the mirror. How much longer are we going to let them or ourselves, those portion of ourselves, our estrangement gone overboard, our ego, how much longer are we going to let them hijack our heart and our heads? Because when we dovetail our heart and our heads, we win in the garden of the mortals. I think it's a great gig having been put here. I think it's a great gig being a human being. And on a personal note, just between you and me, you ever? And now I don't want to get under anybody's skin. That's not true. I want to get over anybody's skin. If you're not busy channeling your all natural being, it's my job to get under your skin. That's the wrong word. I don't want to offend anyone, but you ever get a Facebook friend request, and the person puts up a picture of themselves in a mask? Ever get one of those requests? A mask. And 9 times out of 10, I just don't. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way because I want to see the real you. There's enough masks going on. Enough masks already. Take off the freaking mask, and if that offends you, then all right. Maybe that's my gig. Maybe I am here to offend you into evoking your personal ethos. Maybe that's my job. I like the idea of the loofah, the pumice stone. But if I got to smack you in the face with a high-powered power washer, maybe that's my gig. I mean, you thank me for it later. Right, but if you've ever seen one of these high-powered power washers, they'll knock you flat on your back. But after you get up off your back, you'll go, oh, you know what? I really needed that. Thanks. See these people in masks. And I think, don't we have enough masks? What would be wrong with evoking your personal ethos and standing for what you believe in? Not just in the outside world, but in the mirror, standing for what you believe in. about your inherent uniqueness, your inwired creativity, your passion, your flexibility, your own genius. Oh no, Brian, it's a minefield. I got to hunker down. Well, as I said yesterday, I'm all over you being self-absorbed every so often. Maybe you should hunker in. So what are some of the ways we could do that? Suppose you're listening right now and you go, all right, that was a little offensive. But now I'm interested. I'd like to hunker in. How could I hunker in? One of the ways is that we focus on what we can control. We can't control everything in the mortal garden. Can't control everything in the labyrinth, with one exception. We can control our response to whatever fate throws at us. That's what makes us mentally strong. You see all these apps. I was seeing something this morning where, this company made $17 million last year because they're going to teach you cognitive strength. You already have the cognitive strength. May have atrophied a bit. Maybe. But I promise you, if you hunker in, that's where your mental strength is sitting, waiting for you. Another thing we can do is we can reflect on what we've already learned. Some of the good, some of the bad. I don't know about you. Do you have a situation where your darkest hours taught you your greatest lessons? I know I do. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for one of the darkest hours of my life. And I don't want to get too personal. I don't want to get too gloomy. But when you have to respond to the scene and you identify what's left of your dad because he jumped from a 13-story building and you still can't look at white plastic bags in garbage cans because it reminds you of what his body looked like on the medical examiner's table, it's kind of a dark hour. But I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for one of my darkest hours. How about you? Do you have a darkest hour? Maybe you're going through one now. Maybe the way through this darkest hour is to realize that there is a lesson in this for you. A fingerprint of providence itself. Another thing that we can do, in terms of we're going to look to do our mental strength, bring our mental best. Take decisive action. You and I aren't here in the garden of the mortals to sit around and just veg. Let all the opportunities pass us by. We take decisive action. That's what you and I do. That's what a superhuman does. That's what a metahuman is all about. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning and says, well, do you find that you're more inclined to focus on your strengths or on your weaknesses? And if we haven't talked about it before, I love sizing myself up each day. And if I've got a weakness, you know what a 20-minute victory is for me? Just for me. Remember, say all the time, can't spell Brian without the I in idiot. If this doesn't work for you, then find another way around it. But for me, you know what one of my 20-minute victories is every single day? I focus on a weakness. I focus on something that I absolutely suck at, and believe me, the list is long. Long and deep. But for a 20-minute victory, when I fall asleep at the end of the evening and I look back on those things, if all I'm going to do is pat myself on the back for focusing and using and deploying the things that I'm good at, boring. I think I'd rather watch an episode of Barney Miller and fall asleep. But at the end of the day, if you and I get to focus on one thing that we're like, we're not really good at that. It's not that I'm embarrassed, but it's not putting my best side forward. I never said put your best side forward. What if you and I have a goal of 1 20-minute chunk, 1 second of our day? Let's put our sucky side forward. Because I promise you, if you put a sucky side forward today, tomorrow, not so sucky a side. And you and I, we progressively adapt, just like push-ups or sit-ups or pull-ups or even in terms of memorization. So for a 20-minute victory, put your sucky side forward. Take decisive action and work with one hand behind your back. And for the people who go, well, I don't know what it's like working with one hand tied behind my back. Well, if your soul's been on the sideline all this time, you absolutely know how to work with a hand tied behind your back. So get off your high horse. How was that? Offensive enough? Right? Maybe that's what you and I need to do. From time to time, we need to offend ourselves and go, really? Really? This is the best I can do? This is me bringing my A game? So for a 20-minute victory, let's bring your Z game. Let's bring your crap game. Because I promise you, sure as I'm sitting here, sure as you're listening to me, for the next 20 minutes, lead with something you suck at, and you're going to be your own biggest fan by the end of the day. As well you should be. And that's something, we talk all the time about practicing gratitude. Gratitude, the grease of the mind. And people say to me all the time, well, I can't do the whole thy will be done thing. Why? Because I'm not a very spiritual person. Great. You don't have to be. I'm talking about gratitude without a target. Gratitude without a target. You to define the divine however you like. Because beneath all of that, the bottom of the ocean floor when the storms are blowing around on the waves, these cresting waves, call it religion, the white caps, call it science, the white caps, call it any one of 1,000 religions that are around today. These white caps, call it anything you want. Beneath all the breakers, beneath the hot air, the bloviating wind of fate, beneath all that, the water's calm. Beneath all that, waves can do what they can to be waves, but the rest of the water, kind of like your core going, what is this crazy stress thing all about? I don't get it. I don't get it. That's the way the bottom of the ocean is. They don't even have to go to the bottom. The waves only affect a small percentage of the top of the overall body of water. And if you and I stay in the shallows all the time, and then we right? Red flag warning, and we're building sand castles, and then we bitch because our sand castles are washed away by the waves. Well, then, don't build a sand castle in your own shallows. Build sand castles with the marrow of your own mind. And when we do that, we find all kinds of things to be grateful for. All kinds of things to be grateful for. All you have to do is acknowledge who you already are. That's all I'm suggesting. And you know what I'm saying is true because a part of you has to be listening to this and go, well, he's a little crazy, but you know what? I think he might be onto something here. Even during your toughest times, you could go, God, this is backbreaking, but I'll be stronger tomorrow because of it, so thanks. However you target your thankfulness, your gratitude, just cultivate the sense within your own heart, within your own spine, within your own sternum, and go, thanks for the freaking run at it. And don't apologize. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't let anyone else say to you, well, that wasn't anything to be thankful for. You know. Evoke your own ethos. You were dropped in the garden of the mortals. Leave the whining. Leave the complaining. Leave the bitching and the moaning and everything else to everyone else. But for you, channeling your own natural being, you kick back. Hey, this is a day at the beach. We can use that same mentality to always look for new opportunities, right? That's why I always get to the point where I go, I don't know about carrots at the end of the stick. All I'm asking is for 20 minutes. You don't want to abandon your goals. You don't want to abandon your to-do lists. You don't want to abandon your bucket lists. Fantastic. I'm asking for 1/72nd of your day. There's not another person out there that's working in the evocation field that'll say to you, hey, just try this for 20 minutes. Guaranteed to work. Guaranteed. 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 Bring all the rest. Bring all the gurus. Bring everyone else. Bring their guarantee. I'm simply saying, for 20 minutes, 1/72nd of your day, remember where you are, the garden of the mortals. And as an opportunity presents itself, be absolutely confident in your ability to handle whatever fate throws at it. Whatever. Don't be a victim. Fate's a predator. I did this interview last night for CBS about Zika. I'll be going to Miami here in a week or so to ground zero for Zika. I want to go down and check and see. So I'm going to do a little bit of television down there. And we got back again talking about, my belief that mosquitoes are predators, because they are. They can sense you from over 100 yards away. But fate is also a predator. And fate roams the halls of the labyrinth looking for prey. Now I know this is all metaphor. But in your own heart, you know that looking for new opportunities create the perfect opportunity for you to be who you truly are. You size up the moment. You go, I got this. Beats a sharp stick in the eye. Because looking for those new opportunities, all it really does is, so we're looking for new opportunities. It just reminds us of our old strengths. The old strengths we've always had. The spirit that we've always had. The natural resources that were encoded in us, hardwired into us when we accepted our destiny. Maybe that's the best way to leave it. When you recognize new opportunities, you're just calling on old strengths to deal with them. But when you reconnect, revive, and restore your all-natural being, all that inner strength is yours. Mental strength, physical strength, resilience. You don't need watches, you don't need chest straps, you don't need apps. I am fascinated by the growing industry of everyone wanting to use technology to remove the very stress that technology creates. Oh, I need a mindfulness app on my phone. Oh, alrighty then. If you can sit for 20 seconds, breathe in, exhale, scan your horizon, then take action, you don't need an app for that. And ultimately, that's taking care of yourself. How does it feel at all to think we're taking care of ourselves by constantly being called outside of ourselves? I promise you this, honest to goodness. And if you test this and you find it never works, call me. I'll buy you a pop. I'll buy you a bottle of water. I'll buy you a juice. Just call me. That when you evoke your own ethos, you don't need a technology. You don't need an app. You don't need a guided meditation. Would you like a guided verbal tour on how to inhale? Do you need a guided tour on, here's how to use the muscles of your face to smile? Of course we don't. When you evoke your personal ethos, which technically is really just accepting the responsibility to be here in this moment in the garden of the mortals, when you accept that, the universe sits up and takes notice, as I say, hopefully I say it every day. And that's how you take care of yourself. That's what allows you stamina, strength, flexibility, vision. And I don't mean the tunnel vision that can happen as we grow old. I mean a peripheral vision that'll blow you away. When you remember who you are, who you were pre-amnesia. When I watched my son yesterday, you want to know what he did for his birthday party? You ready for this? Toys, cake, balloons, cards, right? You know what he wanted to do? He wanted to go dig in the sand. Take his little shovel, take his little bucket, So while all the adults that know better, right? Oh, let's get some balloons. Are sitting at the bench alongside the river, watching all the people play Pokemon. I had the time of my life last night. I'll tell you a little side note. One kid, I guess, busy searching for Pokemon, and a cicada went off like literally right above his head. Oh, hysterical. Watching him jump back. Cicada. Oh, he almost dropped his phone. Guess he was on a Pokemon search, not a cicada search. Well, in any event, what did my son want to do? You want to have any of the 20 dishes that have been prepared for him? Open any of the gifts? Any of it? Nope. Dad, can I go dig in the sand? To which I replied, well, you can come dig with me, because that's where I'm heading, is to dig in the sand. And that's how we celebrated his birthday. That's him, at age 3, evoking his personal ethos. So let me ask you a question. And I'll give you the break to be able to answer it honestly to yourself. I'll ask the question, we'll go to break, we'll come back. When's the last time you played in the sand?
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
I want to thank everyone for the texts this morning. I super appreciate it. Got a couple of them talking about hunker in, so I like that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. 331-684-7685. But I got to ask you, give me a little bit of time now. Kind of stalling, doing some thank yous, doing some other things. Was the last time you took your bucket, your shovel, and played in the damn sand? That's what I want to know. When was the last time? When was the last time that you evoked your personal ethos and said, I don't care about the party, I don't care about the distraction, I don't care about everyone else around me? I mean, there was potato salad, cakes, candies, all kinds of cool stuff. His mom worked all day for the big buffet, the big culinary spread. He looked at it. I think he did take one little cheese stick, a little piece of cheese, and then he bolted with me to dig in the sand for the next hour and a half. When was the last time you were digging in the sand? How would you dig in the sand? 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Because as I'm sure you'll admit, just like myself, if we go back there in 10 years, if I haven't tapped out yet, we go back there in 10 years, he probably's not going to want to dig in the sand, right? He evokes his ethos now, but he knows in the garden of the mortals, he knows in the labyrinth of life that we're flexible. We change. The things that are important to us in one day may morph into something else. But evoking your ethos in this moment leaves you in the perfect position to unfold the way nature intended. We're not focused on some down-the-road goal. We're not focused on some distant horizon. That's what it means to be flexible. That's what it means to have courage for around the corner. So you and I stop giving our personal power away when we identify our personal ethos. What is your unique genius? What do you have to offer the rest of us? The rest of us are waiting. We want you to bring your own bowl because we think life's going to be better if you do. So get off the hobby horse. Let's go. I'm waiting. Tick, 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 ding. It'd be great if I could figure out how to do sound effects. I was talking to the guy last night on CBS Radio in the break. I go, yeah, I'll come down to Miami. I'll take you to lunch. Just teach me how to do some of this stuff that you do. He goes, how long have you been doing radio? I go, I think this is like the 94th episode. And oh, yeah. He goes, well, how many producers do you have? I go, zip. I got a bozo, a weeble, punching bozo clown that one of the boys brought into the studio for me, so I got that. But that's about my audience. That's about... You are who you hang with, right? So I got a studio full of inflatable bozo clowns. Another story I found on the web that just absolutely fascinated me. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, if I remember. And it was this concept of offloading, cognitive offloading. And this article here says that every day we rely on our physical surroundings, our friends, our gadgets, even hand gestures, to manage incoming information and retain it. I never thought of it, but I talk with my hands, so I must be using it for some reason. Researchers now explain, according to the article, the myriad ways in which forms of assistance from gestures to GPS affect both what we know and what we think we know. They call this metacognitive evaluation of internal and extended, or internal versus external strategies. So we talked yesterday about this concept of cognitive offloading. I'm a huge fan. Quote, the growing interaction between people and technology has really brought interest in the subject to the forefront. People want to understand how much technology affects the way we think. Oh, we'll go get an app for that. Offloading gives us the ability, quote, to subvert our cognitive limits, says researchers. Well, if we use Google or Bing to search up something we don't know, there's an example of some cognitive offloading. We're turning to technology to kind of give us a foot up. But if we use cognitive offloading in another way, people say, well, as a result, you'll be able to remember more information. So you'll always be able to have that information at your fingertips. Do you ever wonder how much information you really need? I mean, in your daily life, how much information, how many megabytes, gigabytes of information do we truly need in order to be able to smile? So what if this cognitive offloading is just another way of tossing the training wheels, tossing the water wings, so that all we had left was our all-natural being? What's wrong with subverting our cognitive limits? But we do it at the other end of the spectrum. So yeah, you know what? I don't think I need to know anymore. I think I'm pretty good. I think this picture's just about full. I know who I am. I know where I am. I'm a superhuman in the garden of the mortals. I'm a metahuman in the labyrinth of life. So I know who I am, I know where I am, and I know what the hell I'm going to do about it. I'm going to manifest the destiny I promised to fulfill when they dropped my tiny butt here in the first place. Outside of it, how much more information do we truly need? So I say let's cognitively offload all we can. Let's get rid of those things that no longer support us. All those things that water down, that take away, that siphon off our all-natural being. All the distractions, all the stress, all the to-do lists, all these things. I'm getting a text from someone that says they read an article. Hold on. Gestures improve communication even with robots. Wow. What could you cognitively offload today? If you weren't able to answer the question like that, what is digging sand? What is your playing in the sand? What is your unique version of having a bucket and a shovel and just digging in the sand? And what did he do when he filled up the bucket? Dumped it right back over and started digging again. Building sand castles, he called them. If you can't answer that, answer this for me. What could you cognitively offload right now for the next 20 minutes? Could you cognitively offload some stress? I think you might be able to. Peel off a garment, strip down a little bit. philosophical nude beach of the mind. No garments, just you. Your core has no idea what stress is. It's a survival tactic that you've learned, and it's one that we should unlearn. We begin to unlearn it when we recognize, recognize our personal ethos. When we evoke our ethos. In this moment, go, come on, soul, blow the whistle. Come on in. Then life is just a thrill. Even with the ups and downs, no matter what happens. What is your personal ethos? How will you use your unique genius to run the table? And don't let anyone tell you you're not here to run the table. We'll be right back.
No self-help industry tactics here. You're listening to The Real Deal, Brian Brawdy, with All Natural Being on IPM Nation.
All right, IPM Nation. Thank you again to everyone there at IPMNation.com for doing everything they can to help, giving us the opportunity to hang out Monday through Friday, as I say, 11 a.m. Eastern. Don't forget there'll be a replay tonight at 5 p.m. If you're driving home, East Coast time, slap us on. 8 p.m. this evening as well. I'd like to get to the point one day where I could do a smaller version of the morning to fire us up. And then do, at the evening, a little more, Brian calm down version of the show. And it does happen. I can calm down by the end of the day. I really can. I know it's hard to believe. I don't talk with my hands like after 5 p.m. That's the goal. That helps me to start winding down. So before we leave today, remember who you are. That ethos, that unique genius that is you. Remember where you are, the labyrinth of life, the garden of the mortals. And I will tell you, through all the years of doing this, there are gods. There are gods that wish they were in the garden of the mortals. There are gods that are jealous of us. Especially those of us, the kindred, that run the table. That don't give away our personal power. That channel our all-natural being at every turn. All right, my friends, we're getting ready to bolt. Just to let you know, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. East Coast time. In the interim, allnaturalbeing.com, brianbrawdy.com, if you know how to spell the name. Drop me a note. I'll send you one back. Also, Twitter, at Brian Brawdy. Over on Facebook, Brian Brawdy Official is the way to hook up over there. Also, I want to thank everyone that texted in, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. As I mentioned yesterday, I leave that on all the time. So if you have some show tips or ideas or other things that you'd like to talk about, just send it to me. Send it. I'll incorporate it as best I can into that next day's show. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Remember who you are. Remember where you are. Then all you have to do is decide, what the hell are you going to do about it? You and I aren't going back to heaven, having broken our deal. Not you and me. All right, we're going to run. Love you guys. I'll see you, or I'll speak with you tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. Have an absolutely fantastic day.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
I don't know. I think my next 20-minute victory is trying to get some of this sand out of my flip-flops. It's driving me crazy through the whole show.
IPMNation.com.